Okay, one of the things that we're going to be learning, and right now I want y'all to be trying to figure out, okay, what book and what skill actually unlocks the knowing how to relationships with people, great stories of journalism, counseling, intelligence agency, and sales. Now, all of these are my personal experiences, okay? And because of one thing that I learned, actually on relationships and dating, the reason why I read this book was actually because I was terrible at talking to girls. I did not know how to talk to any girl, anybody, and I had no clue, and I was 20, okay? And I thought, this is crazy. So the reason why I read the book was learning how to deal with girls, okay? Now, after reading that one book, after that, I dated one Miss North Carolina runner-up, and then this other lady who was actually prettier than her. Okay, and I mean, so I'm talking about a redneck from East Texas, dating someone in those higher qualities. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the things you have to realize, it's about what you know. And the same information that helped me know how to have relationships with people actually opened up the doors to some of this other stuff. Another thing is, like, one time I realized that I was able to do all kinds of stuff, but I needed someone in my life that was actually rich and could make money. Okay, because I was terrible at making money. And so I saw a guy on TV who was giving his testimony, and just in one business deal, he lost $7 million. Okay, he was multi-million-dollar millionaire. And so I thought, okay, I am going to, as a target, I want to create a relationship with him. Okay, he was someone I had no idea of who he was. I wrote a letter to him. I went to Oklahoma and talked to him and stuff. He later became Jeremy's, my son's godfather, and once took him to Toys R Us and said, anything you want in the store, you can have.
Bought the toy train thing.
Oh, that explains it.
And so, I mean, one of the things that you have to realize, it's like there's certain things in life that whenever you learn it, it affects every other thing. The reason why I'm recording this, but that is the reason why, because of one book. Does anybody have what the skill is or what the title of the book might be so far? Does anybody have any clue what the... Okay. The book is called The Art
of War.
Of Conversation.
Oh.
You should have done like Hangman style or something.
Okay. The Art of Conversation gave the skill of talking and asking questions. One of the things that it said that regarding the relationships and wanting to date with other people, it said before you ever go to talk to somebody, first have 10 questions written down. That you can say, okay, where are you from? What do you like to do? What are you wanting to do? And you're trying to find out some information about them. Because the reality of it is, people love to talk about what they like to talk about. They love to talk about themselves. And if you're trying to create a relationship and you're talking about yourself, guess what? Most of the time it'll go nowhere. Okay, well, I'll give you a good example. My dad had told me, he said, why does your brother, every time he comes to see me, he's only here for 30 minutes? I said, next time he comes over, give me a call, and I'll show you what you need to do. So I came over, and 3 hours later, he was still there. And every time he said, I want to leave, I started talking about something he was interested in. I started talking about something that he wanted to talk about. And so after 3 hours, my dad was convinced, because I had told him about it, but he just didn't believe it was true. The reality of it is, that is the way almost everybody is. Everybody likes to talk about the things that they like, which most of the time is not the things that you like, okay? And people have to understand that, because whenever you're preparing to go on a date, or it also leads to these other things, write down your questions to get a conversation going. Usually, it may take up to 10 questions to get a conversation going with a person. Now, sometimes there's no chemistry, there's no nothing there, and it just won't go anywhere anyway, but you have to know how to get a conversation started. That's the reason why I've been number one in sales, a lot of different places. And you know why? Because I learned how to talk to people. I discovered whenever I was not in the top part of the sales, if I was not asking them about themselves and wasn't talking to them about themselves, you know what? My statistics went down. My numbers went down. So I can clearly always tell if I'm focusing on me or them by how much I was able to sell. Okay, now let's go to great stories in journalism. Okay. Because I've learned how to talk to people and talk to them about things that they're interested in and not just things that I'm interested in. Okay, one of the first things that I ran across was an acquaintance of mine who, one of his friends was a Dallas Police Department officer, and he told him, he said, Richard, anytime you want someone arrested and sent to prison, just let me know, because I will stop them and put some cocaine on their vehicle, and they'll go to jail for at least 10 years.
Oof.
Okay, now how did I know that? Because I wasn't talking about me. Okay, another one. This one acquaintance of mine, he actually got arrested for trying to blackmail the district attorney of Kaufman County. Because the district attorney of Kaufman County was actually selling and buying drugs. Okay, another one was actually in Hunt County, where judges that were actually fixing things with trials, okay, where the lawyer is, okay, now you can decide this one any way you want to, but I need you to go this way on 2 of these trials we're going to have this week. Okay, another one. This one guy that I led to the Lord, he was a pimp, and he had 10 girls in his hostel that was working for him. Does anybody here know what a hostel is? They're basically, or actually not a hostel, but a stable. He had 10 girls that were part of his stable. Okay, he owned a business. He was pimping out his girls. I asked him, I said, okay, how much, he had a business, he had a big nightclub in Dallas as well. I said, how much are you making? With the time you deduct all the drugs, you deduct everything, all of your expenses, how much are you making per year? He said, well, probably about $100,000 a year. Here, 10 people's lives were being destroyed, and he was only making $100,000 a year. Okay, another one is this over in Lake Tawakoni, where the biggest drug dealer out at Lake Tawakoni, the local drug dealer, was only making $30,000 a year selling drugs. Okay, now why am I telling these stories? Can you imagine how any of these stories would go if you were a journalist? And you're talking about the stories of what's going on? And these are just tip of the iceberg stories. These are the ones that get me sort of like, okay. And I'm not even talking about the local militia here in Terrell that actually trains at night sometime. That is sort of like Blackwater. Does anybody know? Anyway, okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, counseling and psychology. Having been to Bible college and studied psychology and everything, one of the things that, because I will be talking to people, asking people about things, I have uncovered so many different rapes and sexual abuses that people have gone through, and many times they had never told anyone. Why? Because they need someone to listen. In psychology and counseling, you have to learn how to ask the questions, and you have to learn how to listen to what the people are saying. I dealt with 3 people who were publicly raped. One, the place was being robbed, and this one lady was being raped on a pool table in front of 30 people. Another one was at an Elks Club, and the same type of thing happened. I have dealt with people who actually, I met one lady in Corpus Christi once, and she was crying. I'm not going to go all the details, but at 18 years of age, from the time she was 7 years of age, her father was having sex with her, and then he would give her to his friends. She first got married whenever she was 16, and then he left her, and then she got married when she was 17, and he left her. And so she was thinking about suicide. I told her, if I was you, I would probably be thinking about suicide too, because she really had one of the worst lives I've ever seen anybody suffering through. But why? Why did people open up and tell you the things? because you're listening and you learn how to communicate. Okay, another thing is identification factors. I discovered through word association and psychology, and I give you an example of two people that I know personally. One of them identified with her aunt, and because she identified with her aunt, she had the same surgeries as her aunt, she had the same amount of divorces as her aunt, because she was living out the life of somebody she identified with. Another man, the same thing, the same amount of surgeries, the same amount of divorces, because he identified with his father. One of the things in psychology, if you're listening and know how to listen and to ask the right questions, you can identify everything. Did you know, whenever I was really into psychology and word association, I could say one word and ask you to give a one-word response, and you could answer my question with one word. Because whenever you're doing subconscious word associations, you can actually drill down and find out exactly what's happening. Discovering root issues. Whenever it comes to psychology and the emotional issue, my family was so dysfunctional, I studied psychology to try to figure out why everybody was so crazy. Not crazy in the literal sense, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay, and so one of the things you can see how talking and the art of conversation does these things. Okay, and you also see how it sells. Okay, now, also I was asked to work with an intelligence agency. And one of the things that there was once a planned attack right across the street from the U.S. Embassy at 1 o'clock on, I think it was a Thursday, or maybe a Friday. And this attack was supposed to be 1 o'clock. The U.S. Embassy and the CIA didn't even have a clue that this attack was fixing to happen. And yet I knew it. You know how I knew it? Because I was talking to people. I was talking and asking them about different things. And that's how I found out about it. And then after that, actually I was asked to work with an intelligence agency because the CIA would sometimes be coming to me and asking me questions that they didn't have answers to. Which is sort of interesting.
I was going to say, that must make you feel real special.
See, this is one of the reasons why whenever, like, a lot of people are talking about the CIA, they've never had any experience with them. I've had personal friends of mine that were British intelligence, CIA intelligence, the DIA, the Serial intelligence, all kinds of different intelligence agencies. And so, the difference between a spy and a journalist? One of them is working for a government, and the other one is working for a newspaper. Because a spy basically does one thing. They're out after information. It isn't all the stuff you see like James Bond and all the killing stuff. 90% of it has nothing to do with that. It's all about one thing, getting information. And if you can get the information, that's what they're looking for. And one of the things so this is one of the things that's sort of interesting. Another time I had prior knowledge to, on a Sunday evening, I went and reported to my handler that there was supposed to be an attack coming, and this guy had supposedly overthrown over 20 countries, and he has come into Sierra Leone to overthrow the country. And I'm laughing about it, and the CIA and British intelligence guys, they're laughing about it. We're all laughing about it because we're thinking, nobody could ever, if anybody had overthrown 20-something countries, everybody in the world would know it, right? Well, wrong. The following Thursday, my handler came up and he said, now, we arrested this guy when he came into the airport today. How did you know about this last Sunday? One of the things that this guy, he ended up being, he was actually a former MI6 officer. And how he had overthrown over 20 countries is that he would come in with false British intelligence documents or CIA documents and say, okay, we'll pretend that Ethan is the president of Sierra Leone. Oh, wow. And I'd come up and say, okay, we have this information for you, and this guy that you're really trusting, actually he's trying to overthrow you. Because I'm being paid by someone that's trying to get him out. And this guy had overthrown over 20 countries by coming in with false information, getting their core people out so they could get in the right people they wanted. See, one of the things is, and I shared this, I think, in one of the first classes, is about the soldiers, remember? how that one of the things that one of the times I was with the first vice president's office, and we were brainstorming what to do to solve a civil war in Sierra Leone from the rebels. And so I mentioned the fact, I said, well, what if you try the incentive program? I'm from the U.S., right? Incentive for everything. Oh, well, we did. We were giving them, I think it was $35 for every person that they killed. And so they started going into the villages, cutting their heads off and bringing them back for the $35. So we had to stop that. And I said, and then another thing that was really, to me, shocking is when this whole war started, they couldn't get the Sierra Leone soldiers to actually fight.
Oh yeah, you told us this.
And the reason why you couldn't get them to fight is because they were very peaceful, too peaceful. And so they got the drugs from either U.S. forces or from European sources. I don't know which one. But they got the drugs that made them want to kill people. A year after them giving them drugs that made them want to kill people, they were literally cutting people open, and they'd be walking by, the soldiers would be walking by and seeing a pregnant woman and make a bet whether it's a boy or a girl, and then they'd cut it open to see which one won. Or trapping people in a bus and setting it on fire so they could actually, just watch it burn. I've actually seen people carrying heads by their hair because their heads were cut off. I mean, I've had bayonets in my throat, pistols at my head, all kinds of different things. But and all of that stuff, I love it. Okay, to me, it's fun, it's interesting, and my goal is that at least one person from PCCS becomes some kind of an intelligent asset. But here's one of the things you need to know: if you ever do apply to the CIA, you can't even tell your parents. There's one wedding that I performed as a minister. Actually, the mother said, I know my daughter is a CIA agent. She said, but she can't tell me she is. But I remember when she sent her application in. But what is the difference between sales, intelligence agency, or being a spy, counseling, journalism, or relationships with dating? What is the difference? Learning how to talk to people and asking the right questions. Because if you ask the right questions, well then the world of journalism opens up and you get stories that nobody else has a clue of. Because here's the reality. There is so many stories around that it's not even funny. And I personally like action. That's the reason why I actually pray sometimes I used to pray now with Jeremy and Veronica. It's like, I can't pray for excitement anymore, but I used to actually pray for excitement because I love excitement, and that's one of the things, but what is the difference? What do all these have in common? Your ability to talk to people. Now, how many would love to learn how to talk to the opposite sex and be able to achieve any goal that you have with the opposite sex? I'm talking about godly goals, okay?
Of course. I know what you meant.
Okay, but how do you do it? Actually, I recommend anyone to get the book, The Art of Conversation, or at least read a synopsis of it, so that you can find out how to talk to people, because that opens the door for everything in life. Because if you don't know how to talk to people, you will probably be a lone person that is wondering, why doesn't anyone like me? And actually, I thought, because that's really what happens. Because people are like, well, why didn't this girl like me? Or why didn't this person like me? And it's because you don't know how to talk. You don't know how to hold a two-way conversation. It's just like our conversation with God should be two ways, not one way. Okay, if you're dating a girl, how much of the conversation is about what you're wanting to talk about?
You get about 25%.
About 5%.
And how much is it about what they want to talk about?
95.
See, and this is what people have to realize whenever you're losing your person. I don't care whether it's a contact that you're getting information at an intelligence agency, or whether it's a counseling or great stories or dating someone. If you're losing that person, where they're no longer wanting to be interested in you, you've got to change your conversation tactic. And that's one of the reasons why, as we're going into some of the things where we'll be doing interviews and stuff, I really encourage everyone to actually get the book and read about the art of conversation and how to, because as you see that in that realm, there's all kinds of different things, but that literally changed my life. Apart from becoming a Christian and coming to the Lord, this book probably did more to change me and my future than every other thing I ever read combined. That's the reason why I wanted to put this on and record it so that everybody can see it, because you need to remember that, okay? So, okay, now I'll stop. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about actually the art of conversation and knowing how to ask questions. Anyway, it talks about the W's, like who, what, when, where, why, and how. Okay, whenever you're wanting to do a story or anything, you always need to write your questions. And you need to go through who, what, when, where, why, and how. You know, and that needs to be worked into the story in some way that actually doesn't look weird. But who, what, where, when, and why, and then how. It all depends on what it is you're trying to do. But one of the things that it is learning how to ask the questions. And not only just knowing that you need to, but learning how to ask the questions is so important, because that can really make all the difference between actually having friends and no friends, having lots of friends or no friends. The Bible says to have friends, you must show yourself friendly, but people have no clue what it means to show yourself friendly. You have to be interested in them and listening to what they're saying. It's not just about what you're saying and your ideas and what you're wanting to get across.